Yeah, so welcome to another preview podcast. Che Long and I, of course, are with you to take us through what we can expect from the Eastleigh game. It's an interesting game, isn't it, Che? We've hit good form. We've just played two teams near the bottom. Now Eastleigh are a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, they're a good side. Quite clearly, they're a good side. And, yeah, we're going to have to be at our best to nullify, I think, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. Although, interestingly, their form has just dipped a little bit the last few games. So perhaps, was it 1 win in 5? So perhaps we've hit them at the right time?
Yes, 100%. And they drew to a 10-man Hartlepool as well in their last game. So maybe we've hit them at the right time. But again, they've had up and down form. But sometimes it's seeing a team on the ropes. It's not always a good time to play these sort of sides.
Yeah, that's very true. They changed their shape on Saturday. They've been very consistent playing 4-4-2 all season. They went to 3 at the back. They were on top of the game. But I think, like you said, against a reduced team, and when it was 11 against 11 as well, they had a lot of possession and didn't necessarily make enough chances. And that's something which, well, I think they might be a little concerned by. They were very slow building up through the thirds. It was all based on possession, and they weren't really breaking Hartlepool down. A lot of quite passive passing in their own half. And they'll look to address that, whether it'll be by changing their shape again or whether they'll just try to speed things up. I don't know, but I think they'd want to try and get at us more than they manage against Hartlepool.
100%. I like their strikers. I like Tyrone Barnett and Ben House.
Yeah. They're, I like, it's going to sound a bit stupid, this. I like Barnett because I feel like what he does, essentially, is just he's alert in the box. I feel almost like that's his great strength. It's not so much any sort of particular areas of his game that scare me, apart from the fact he's a sort of bloke who gets in the box, gets in good positions, gets his shots off, and he's got 8 goals this season. He looks sharp, I think.
Yeah. And Joe McDonald as well, their keeper. He's 8 clean sheets this season. Yeah. So he's a good keeper. Their defence seems solid. I'd like to thank Alfie House, member of Eastleigh FC's media team, who's provided me with loads of notes on how they're playing and who to look out for. He said there's a winger called Tom Platt, who looks really good, but he's quite a big frame. So really thank you to Alfie a lot for helping me out with these. And he thinks their team's going to do pretty well and will probably end up in the playoffs this season. So that they seem confident going into this too.
Well, they seem to go hand in hand with us. Both sides seem to improve at the same time, didn't they? We started to kick on after losing at Stockport and Chesterfield, and Eastleigh's decent run coincided with us. And I remember I kept looking at them. We played them at the start of that sequence when we drew at Eastleigh, and it got to the point where they and us had the longest unbeaten runs in the division. Now, they kicked on and carried on, so their unbeaten run went to 8 or 9 or something like that. But then they've suddenly lost 2 home games in a row, and then that draw at Hartlepool, which looks good on paper, but I think really looking at the game was probably a missed opportunity to get back to winning ways. Yeah. So they drew the game before that, so they've dropped 10 points in their last 4 games, which has got to be a concern for them. I think they do look like a playoff side, but they need to start winning again now, don't they?
Yeah, of course they do, and let's hope their fortune doesn't change against us on Tuesday. But I think we have all the tools to beat them. If we watch the last game against them, which isn't too long ago, I think we should have won that game. Looking back at it, and I think if we play like we did then, and the pitch was a bit bobbly, the conditions weren't very good that day, from what I can remember, and we were down to 10 men for a good portion of the game, and they had a dodgy penalty. So if we play like we did in the last game, maybe with a bit more of that attacking flair like we did against Weymouth, I think we have a good chance of winning this.
I was disappointed with them against us in that game. I completely agree. We should have beaten them. And the penalty was just unbelievable. They weren't making enough chances against us. We had that lead. It was sort of even, and like you said, the conditions ruined the game. But Once we got that lead in those conditions, we were on top of the match. I thought I didn't really feel terribly threatened when they put pressure on us. They weren't really worrying me that much. They weren't really carving out that many chances. And then the Mickey Mouse penalty was given. That was an astonishing decision. But yeah, they didn't really open us up enough. I was a little surprised at them, to be honest. I expected more from them in that match. Maybe the conditions affected them. But like I said, against Hartlepool, they're quite slow in the build-up. I mean, Payne is an excellent playmaker. I really like him. Sort of player I'd like to have, someone who can get his foot on the ball in midfield. But the problem is, certainly on Saturday, I think it's slowed down too much because everyone's going through him. So I think they're good. But, yeah, I'm just kind of hoping that maybe we're hitting them at the right time.
Yeah, especially with the form we're in, because I'd like to talk about us a bit more. I thought we were excellent in our last game, especially in the last 20 minutes. And I think we have all the tools to beat these guys. And the big question is, do we stick Tyler French at right wing back, or do we stick him at centre back? There's a lot of conundrums Dean Keats is going through at the moment. I wouldn't like to be in.
The issue with French, I suppose, is Keats rotating? Is he giving him a rest? And in that case, does that mean you give, say, Carrington a rest? Or do you say, well, that was good on Saturday, especially in the second half. Do you leave French on the bench? But he'd be, hey, rhyming. That rhymes. I just realised. I'm so excited by that. I want to be an English teacher when I grow up. But French looks class, looks like a good player, so it feels counterintuitive to leave him out. But hey, it's only a couple of games, perhaps. And then you've got the changes he made during the second half, which really reinvigorated the side, didn't they? All three of them did well. Ponticelli looked very good up front. Harris really added some snap in midfield. Jarvis was very involved going forwards. He must surely be tempted to be looking at those players and thinking, yeah, maybe they should get a start as a reward for what they did.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But I also think the lads who got subbed off that game had a good outing as well. So I think it's great that we have this depth at the moment, and the whole squad, the whole first 11, even the squad is looking strong in general. So I wouldn't want to be playing Wrexham at the moment if I was an opposition side. And
I'm sort of glad in a way we haven't got a game on Saturday, because the games are coming thick and fast, and I think it is good that players can have a little bit of a break. But by the same token, I always feel that when you're playing well and when the results are going your way and you get the momentum going, I want to play the tough games then. And we have got some tough games coming up after that break at the weekend. And I sort of feel like I want to get at them now, and build it up.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from, but the teams around us have those games that they have to play. So I'm quite happy of them having a bit of a rest and recuperation, and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, so maybe we have to have a bit of more of a think tactically if we've lost or if we drew, but hopefully we won't. But yeah, picking that starting 11 at the moment is going to be a really, really tough job for Keats.
Especially because Jay Harris, you would normally, he's the captain. In absence to Sean Pearson, you'd normally expect to be an automatic choice in the team, but the midfield's done so well when he's been out. But now he's come on, and I think he's shown he is sharp now. He's come back from that. He looks decent. And that's a very interesting conundrum, because you do change the pattern of the midfield, perhaps, if you, say, leave Durrell out for him. Whether it's that Jordan Davis gets a rest again because this is his first full season, perhaps. I don't know. But, it's interesting. But like you say, good that he's got those choices. The other one, Ponticelli and Angus, of course, I guess, is the obvious big decision he's got to make.
Yeah, of course. And if Ponticelli plays like he did when he come on against Weymouth, then I think he has every right to maybe start, or maybe even just knocking on the door of Dio Angus.
And then, we're not even saying anything about Jarvis, who looked very lively when he came on, caused real problems. Yeah. Got an assist, though, admittedly, he was trying to score.
Places down, Dan Jarvis,
he has a very loyal fan base amongst Wrexham fans, doesn't he? There's plenty of Wrexham fans who'd really like to see him getting a proper run in the team.
Yeah, 100%. And merited as well. I don't think I've really seen him play bad this season often. And, but again, I also wouldn't be upset if Keats picked the exact same side as he did on Saturday.
Yeah. I think that if Eastleigh play in a similar way to the way they did against Hartlepool, it'll be interesting to see how we break it down. I think Jarvis is really good sort of in a transition. Maybe he was better last season than this, if I'm perfectly honest. But I just think he's got a lot of quality when it comes to playing the right pass at the right time when you're breaking forwards. If Eastleigh play like he did on Saturday, that won't be that much use. Maybe you sort of have a player who can pass it around when a defence is sat in a little bit. But yeah, it's nice to have those issues. And of course, as well, the other thing that we can't comment on, or we don't know, the sort of freshness of different players. You know, Carrington coming back from an injury has played non-stop. Is that fine because he can do that? Does it mean he needs a little bit of a rest? Does the fact we don't then play for a bit mean that you can say to the team, no one's resting today, let's get out there? You know, there's sports science we are not privy to that could be making decisions here. And then, of course, Leighton's available, although, to be fair to Dibble, he's just had 2 clean sheets. I don't think he's going to be very happy if he wasn't playing in the game.
I think when it comes to keepers, if a keeper's playing well and he's keeping goals out, you've got to carry on playing him.
Yeah.
This sort of kind of reminds me, we haven't had 2 keepers this strong since maybe Maxwell, really, have we?
That's exactly right, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I suppose you could argue there was a strange season of Gary Mills where I'm not trying to argue that he didn't plan out what he wants to do during the summer, but he only had 3 centre-backs and then declared he wanted to play 3 at the back, which was a little strange. and yeah, exactly. And then also he has Shwan Jalal, who was one of the best goalkeepers at this level, and then suddenly brought in Chris Dunn, who was one of the best goalkeepers at this level. And it was like, hang on, we just brought in 2 players who clearly are both good enough to be our first choice, and then other areas of our squad are incredibly weak. What are you doing, man? But I wouldn't. Having said that, I think that Leighton's certainly better than those 2 goalkeepers.
Yeah.
So you're probably right. Actually, probably the B.A.B. Maxwell conundrum is last time we had such an embarrassment of riches in goal. I think.
Yeah,
which you can fall back on me if you have to. You know?
Yeah, it's but it's nice that we have these dilemmas all across the pitch, and like literally every position you've got 1 or 2 players who can play in those positions. It's really, really healthy.
Dilemma. That was a good goalkeeper, Welsh keeper. Well, it looks like you haven't put your 10 pence in the meter, so it's probably time for us to stop previewing this game, to be honest with you. But let's hope that we can get a decent outcome out of this and keep that momentum going, because losing rarely is how you get at least into the playoffs, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. And again, a nice positive performance and results. As long as we're not walking away from the games like this losing, it's positive.
Exactly right. Let's hope it goes well. You can remember you can watch the stream as always. You can listen to the commentary on Mixlr, and there'll be the usual range of podcasts. And you know what I'm going to say: like, subscribe, get notifications, all that malarkey, write a review, leave a rating. Everything helps to push Wrexham and earn more money for us. So thank you very much, Jay. It was always a pleasure to go through the footy and chew the fat with you.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this, Mark. I've really enjoyed looking at the Eastleigh team in general. I think they're really good.
Well, let's hope they're not that good. I reckon. Brilliant. Okay, so we've been Mark Griffiths and Che Long from the Wrexham AFC media team. Well, it's an interesting time to be playing Eastleigh, of course. They have been on a long unbeaten run, but recently those results have dropped off, just 2 points gained from the last 12. And so because of that, they made maybe a bit of a drastic move on Saturday when they went to the Hartlepool, a similar game to what they'll be facing coming to us, really, playing away from home against an informed side who maybe like to keep the ball, play more possession-based style. Now, what they've done is, most of the season, they played 4-4-2. And they've had very little disruption in that. And so that shape, sometimes House will drop off and Barnett will be a bit more isolated. But that's the essential shape that they've tended to favour. Payne as a playmaker, he might drop off, split the centre-backs, let the full-backs go up a bit and try to pass out from deep. But that was basically their template. But then against Hartlepool, they suddenly changed their minds. And they went to 3 at the back. Now, this meant that Hill, who was an energetic player, played in behind the 2 strikers. He helped to press a lot. They were a bit of a broken team often, with those 3 pushing up and the others sitting off. The centre-backs moved across, with Partington coming in as a central defender. He's a good, versatile player like Partington. And then the wide midfielder, Blair, became a right wing-back. But that was an initial problem for them. Blair, I think, overcompensated. Tomlinson pushed up a bit on the left. Blair, at first, sat in almost like a fullback and left way too much space on his flank. So he dropped in level with the centre-backs. Eventually, he managed to correct that. If I could just illustrate it, here's an early attack where Hartlepool come down the left-hand side. Where's the right wing-back? There he is there now on the sides of the pitch. Much too deep. He's given away the flank. And as a result, Hartlepool work a shooting position. Now, he did correct this as the game went on. And this attack, he takes up much more of an orthodox wing-back position. And as a consequence, he's able to come forwards and break when necessary. Sometimes he went a long way forwards, a proper wing-back, if you will. And as you can see here, the long kick picks him out as the furthest player forward. He commits a foul, but, still, that's more what you'd expect from a wing-back. It means to see, especially faced with Jimmy Record, who as we know is very progressive, whether he can actually push on or not. That'll be a key indicator, I think, of how the game is going. They're a possession-based team. They like to move the ball around. In fact, if anything, I think the problem against Hartlepool was they were too patient, moving the ball around nicely. There's Payne, the playmaker, who I'll get back to in length in a moment. But as you can see, a lot of neat triangles being created, but no huge urgency in the use of the ball, moving it about. Admittedly, Hartlepool started to sit in, but sort of passing around without necessarily progressing very well. Quite slow movement of the ball. Part of this, I've got to admit, is both an issue for them and a strength. In that Payne is probably the best playmaker in the division, a quality player. He's there in the middle of the pitch, number 8. He wants to be in the middle of everything. Everything comes through him. He's an excellent passer of the ball. He directs play extremely well. But as you can see, as here he pops off and makes himself available again, he's dropping off square or behind the ball. He shifts to the point of attack, but it's a bit too slow, perhaps. They're not drawing Hartlepool out. Maybe they want to draw them out. Wrexham probably will come at them more, won't they, and be drawn out. But it's a little slow the way they want to work through him. He's closed off the space a little there. He's leaving Hollands as the central midfielder who maybe is trying to get up into little pockets. And with the 3 centre-backs sitting in behind him, this danger is going to be a bit passive. So here we are again. So he'll drop off deep in front of the back 3. And as a consequence, he's waiting for it to come through him. Like he's always looking around his shoulder. He's aware of what goes on around him. He's a very important player for them. And so even when they've gone a little bit direct, he's there, waiting for when it breaks down. He's making himself always available for the first pass out from the back. There he is again. So that movement, he's always looking for space, but he's always looking for it in quite a deep position in this match. Now he's got it. And he'll direct affairs, as you can see. But do they want him to be doing that 20 yards higher at the pitch? I think they do. It'll be interesting to see if they try to address that against Wrexham. Eventually, if they go direct, it doesn't work. And again, here he is in the centre circle. He's being picked up, but he'll look for space. But he's that one, unless they go down the line, he's that one link to play. So he's received it now. He's under pressure. He's forced to go backwards. And again, we now find ourselves in that pattern again of slow build-up play until eventually they look to release long down the flanks, and that was their alternative to going through him. Here he is again, just offering support. Now this is a bit higher up the pitch. Hartlepool parking the bus. Now can they look to move things on a little bit quicker? They had the wing back in space. Could they have got it to him sooner? because he has to come back onto his right foot to deliver. Again, he drops off and maybe is blocking the centre-back as he's coming forwards. He wants to take over. And you've got 4 men, 5 men in your own half behind the ball while Hartlepool get back. They didn't shift it quickly enough. However, he then does look for that classic diagonal to the wing-back, which nearly works. So he's a class player, but I think they were too reliant on moving the ball through him. And if they move the ball slowly like that against us, you would think that they would not prosper as a consequence. Going forwards, the movement up front, well, House likes to drop off, and with Hill in the hole, it offers the opportunity for them to just look for gaps down, as particularly the right channel seems to be somewhere they would drop off and try to drive into. So House dropping off and Hill driving forwards was a manoeuvre you would see a few times. Or them switching over like for like. Barnett tends to pin the centre-backs, House drops off, and the two of them will switch positions and make sort of complementary runs to create space for each other. When they've lost the ball, they tended to sort of squeeze more than press, shall we say, and it wasn't too difficult for Hartlepool to pass their way around the pressure that was on the ball. See, they've all come across now. They'll close them down. They're leaving gaps on this side of the pitch, aren't they? Look at all that space that the number 3 is just wandering around in. Hartlepool need to shift this faster now, don't they? But there's a lot of space between the deep wing back and the halfway line. A lot of room to operate in, and again, if they defend like that with such a flat midfield in front of a back 3, that leaves the flanks open for the likes of Record and Hall-Johnson. And the other issue, perhaps, with that security of 3 at the back, of course, means you can step into the hole. If the centre-backs didn't, though, although Payne would play deep when he had the ball, he didn't tend to do that so much when Eastleigh didn't. And look at that big gap between Payne and the centre-backs developed there. Now, that was a really common feature which Hartlepool didn't manage to exploit. But again, there's your midfield, there's your gap. It's easy to drop out and receive. You often pull a centre-back out as well when you do that. And that meant that Hartlepool sometimes would try and get runners in behind the centre-back who stepped up. Because like I said, you play 3 at the back, you've got scope for your centre-back to pull up. But here they pushed up, but they haven't really pressed hard. They haven't really looked to get the ball back in the opposing half. They're step up now. Nobody's getting close enough to make a challenge. They're just blocking passing channels more than anything else. But there's that big gap over Payne's shoulder. Come out then, pull the centre-back out with you, and now there's scope, if they're quick with the ball, to put something in behind. Hartlepool not taking advantage of that situation. Eastleigh were the better side in this game. But it was a very passive match. There's that space again now. And he's able to move on a bit quicker there, and that forces an error. And there's a shooting chance which isn't taken. But moving the ball around, that gap in front of the back 3 is something you feel Eastleigh need to address, because their lines are quite spaced out. Their centre-backs aren't the quickest. They don't want to push up too far. But as you can see here, the 3 midfielders have all stepped up. And there's a big space in behind those two now. Hollands and Payne are trying to track back. Here another one, attack breaks down. You've got 5 players up there. They've not really pressed effectively. You've now got half the team out of position. The 2 midfielders stepping up. The wing-backs are getting back. But to see the big space in there again, the centre-back had to come up to pick up House when he dropped off. Now there's space down the side of the centre-backs. There's room to play in Eastleigh's half. So there are areas that you could exploit, I think. Here we are again. Centre-backs have stepped up. Centre-back again has to step out with House. Ball played in behind the back. Shooting chance for Hill, because he manages to run into that gap, and then he's got him against the 2 centre-backs, plus another striker in support. So there's issues there in terms of space as they bed in that new system. Without having a holding midfielder in front of the back 3 when they haven't got the ball, there's space in there. Centre-backs come out, get dragged out, space comes in behind. The wing-backs are pushed up so they can't come round the sides. So there's potential there for Wrexham to possibly exploit, and with pacey strikers like Ponticelli and Angus to make those little breaks into the gaps that they leave. It'll be interesting to see if Wrexham can exploit that, and interesting to see if Eastleigh move the ball quicker than they did against Hartlepool, because that was their big failing, I think, on the ball. Watch out for set pieces. I've not put any set pieces into this, but Eastleigh, when the sides met 6 weeks ago, caused Wrexham real problems from set pieces. They didn't create much from open play, but they put a lot of good quality into the box and caused Wrexham problems that way. So Wrexham will have to be cautious that they don't get caught out with the restarts. Having said that, Wrexham played well at Eastleigh, were not for a dubious penalty, would have won it, and will look positively towards this match, especially if they can stop them moving the ball quickly and stop Payne from dominating the game higher up the pitch than he did against Hartlepool.
Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any of our content, and click the bell to get notifications.